Long ago, in the valley of Elah, two mighty armies stood on opposite hills, the Israelites and the Philistines. The air was tense, and fear filled the hearts of Israel's soldiers. From the Philistine side, a giant warrior emerged, Goliath. Nearly 3 meters tall, covered in bronze armor, he was an unstoppable force. Goliath raised his sword and bellowed, "Who will fight me? If you defeat me, we will be your slaves. But if I win, you will serve us." Day after day he challenged them, but no one dared to step forward. The Israelite soldiers whispered among themselves, their faces pale with fear. No one had the courage to fight this monstrous warrior. One day, a young shepherd boy named David arrived. He had come to bring food to his brothers, but when he heard Goliath's challenge, something stirred within him. David looked at the giant warrior, then at the fearful Israelite army. He couldn't believe no one trusted God to help them. David's older brother scoffed, "Why are you here? You're just a shepherd." But David knew this was more than just a battle. It was about faith. David stood tall and said, "I will fight Goliath. The Lord will deliver him into my hands." King Saul looked at David in disbelief. "You are just a boy. How can you fight this giant?" David replied, "I have fought lions and bears while protecting my sheep. God rescued me then, and he will rescue me now." Saul offered his royal armor, but David shook his head. "I don't need this. God is my protection." David walked to a nearby stream and carefully chose 5 smooth stones. With his sling in hand, he stepped onto the battlefield. The ground seemed to shake as David approached Goliath. The mighty warrior towered over him, but David stood firm. Goliath laughed. "Is this a joke? You send a boy to fight me?" But David was not afraid. He called out, "You come with a sword and spear, but I come in the name of the Lord Almighty." David placed a stone in his sling and began to swing it around and around, faster and faster. With a mighty release, the stone flew through the air and struck Goliath right in the forehead. The giant warrior staggered, his eyes wide with shock, and then, boom! He crashed to the ground. The Philistine army gasped in horror. Their mighty champion was defeated. In fear, they turned and ran. The Israelites cheered. They had won the battle, not by strength, but by faith. David stood in the battlefield, looking up, whispering a prayer of thanks. He had trusted God, and God had delivered victory. David returned home, greeted by his family with love and joy. He was no longer just a shepherd. He was a hero of faith. Many years later, another young boy watched David's story, his eyes wide with wonder. He closed his hands in prayer, inspired by David's courage and trust in God. And so we remember, true strength is not in swords or armor, but in faith. Trust in God, and he will fight your battles.